Is it like Sixth Sense? I see dead people.
Yeah, exactly.
Today's guest is Australia's #1 psychic detective. She's an internationally acclaimed psychic medium, author, psychic detective and spiritual teacher, and has spent the last 30 years assisting police departments around the globe with high-profile missing persons and murder investigations. She's a best-selling international author and makes regular appearances in the media and is in high demand for speaking engagements and interviews, so I am thrilled to have her on the podcast. If you've ever wondered about the afterlife, if ghosts are real, or anything to do with the paranormal and psychic ability, today's episode is for you. Episode 106, Debbie Malone. The One Moment Please podcast.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Debbie.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited. You're my first official psychic medium that I have spoken to. And I was having a chat to your lovely business manager, Emma, and she was saying to me, don't be surprised if in the middle of the conversation, Debbie says, oh, you've got somebody over your shoulder. So I purposefully unblurred my background in case that happened.
Yeah, I never know it's going to happen. Yeah.
So I'm fascinated because there's different types of psychics and compared to clairvoyance and mediumship. So how do you define your abilities? Do you see people, or is it like Sixth Sense? I see dead people.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like that. Initially, I couldn't be sitting up talking to you now and seeing dead people around you. I used to only see them when I was first started to tune in, was be seeing them in a meditative state. I mean, I used to see dead people when I was little. My grandfather, who I was very close to, died when I was around 14, 15. And I used to see him. He used to come into my room and sort of be like a see-through blue kind of a apparition. And he'd come and sit on the bed. He would never talk to me. He would just sit on the bed and I'd feel the blankets go tight. So I would know that was him. And he smoked. He died of throat and lung cancer, so I would smell cigarette smoke around him. I used to always see lights and balls of light flying around my room, and I'd hear a lot of muffled voices, and that used to scare me. And I used to tell my mum and dad, and they just said I was just trying to get their attention, or I had a overactive imagination. But as I've got older and I started doing spirit photography in around 1999, that's when I realized that those balls of light I was seeing were actually spirit energies, or what's called an orb. And I'm a clairaudience, so I'd hear spirit. And so that those voices I were hearing would be like little snippets of conversations, and lots of people sort of going, sort of in and out of the room. And I had a very vivid experience 2 nights ago. Was sitting up really late working on something, and I went to bed and my head was very busy because I'd been on the computer all day, and I ended up having that kind of conversation in my head that I had when I was a kid. So it was like I was just sitting in a room that was busy with lots of people, all little snippets of conversation coming in.
I'm coming at it from a completely ignorant but yet fascinated viewpoint. So a lot of my questions you're going to probably roll your eyes at, but please bear with me.
No.
If someone normally says, I'm hearing voices and I'm seeing things, a lot of people would automatically say that person's having some form of psychosis.
Of course.
Particularly, I would say those in the I'm obviously not a medical professional, but those in the medical profession would sort of lean towards that way. How did you know, or I don't know if you could speak to anybody else, but how does one know that this is different to a psychosis rather than? Do you understand what
I understand what you're saying.
at? Yeah,
definitely. It's very hard because when I was writing my book, Awaken Your Psychic Abilities, when you look up hearing voices, yeah, it means that you are having a psychotic episode, or that you're bipolar, or you have got mental health issues. But we also call that clairaudience. So we have 5 senses that we see through, that we use on a daily basis. But we actually have 8 psychic senses that we don't always work or think that run hand in hand. So all of us have them. Some of us have them activated more than others, but I think it's a very, very fine line. And I think when you're working on the positive, then you are picking up it on a psychic side of things. And I do think people with mental health issues, or mental illness, or if they are bipolar or schizophrenic, a lot of the time they are picking up on actual psychic experiences, but they may be working more on the negative. Like, you might get a little gut feeling or a little voice telling slow down, there's a radar up ahead, and you slow down and there's one there. Or you might be thinking, I really want a parking angel today. And you're at the supermarket and it's really busy, or the shopping center, and then you're guided to go to a certain aisle and you drive in and there's a parking spot. So we would just say, oh, that's our intuition, or it's like our little parking angels there to help us. But the other side of that too, if you've got getting messages, you might get a message about, just pop into your head that, oh, you're going to see such and such today, or you need to ring someone because they're upset, or you get a little message about someone and then they pop up in front of you. That, is that a mental health issue or is it a psychic thing? I think it's psychic, but I think a lot of the time it's a very, very fine line. And what energy are you working on for that particular thing to be positive or a negative is the other thing to think about.
So your own personal energetic vibration is going to attract either spirit from the light or spirit that's not so light.
Yeah, like it can, sometimes if you're feeling depressed or down or sad, like attracts like. So even in life, you might, if you're feeling down, you might attract more negativity into your life. But when you're more positive, then you attract more positivity into your life. So, there's good and bad in the spirit world, and there's good and bad in life. And I think, when we die, we don't all suddenly get a set of wings and become angels. Not everybody's walking around to you being a devil either. So I from my own personal experience, yes, it's a fine line and trying to work it out. But when you're getting guiding, uplifting messages and positive things, it might be inspiration. You might be writing something and you get positive inspiration. A lot of musicians, they will get positive things, through lyrics, or painters or artists, or authors. So a lot of the time they say that they get inspiration from above, or suddenly they feel this surge of energy that's giving them positive things. So that's not a bad thing, but then they might not always say it's a psychic thing. So I think it depends what people want to call it, really.
So by that definition, then I would say that everybody has a psychic ability.
They do. They do. We're all born
Wow.
psychic. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All
So
right. So we're all born psychic. I wasn't expecting that.
yeah, and I think it's on what your definition of psychic is. I think people are more accepting to say that we're intuitive. Or we all will go with our gut feelings because it feels right or it doesn't feel right. But if we all said, oh, I'm psychic, everyone starts to think, oh, you're psycho, you're psychotic, or are you psychic? But we do have moments in time when we do get these things coming through to us. And it can be when you're, on the verge of, an accident, or whether you're on the verge of death. Like I've had 7 near-death experiences now. So that's why I do what I do. I did not want to do this. This was the last thing in the world I wanted to do. I wanted to be a dive instructor, and I blew my oval window going through my courses. So that stopped me doing that. But then that gave me tinnitus in my right ear. So then that's the ear I hear spirit in. So it's kind of like through a negative, something else happened. It's my other incarnation, I was a graphic designer, and I still do a lot of things with graphics and things when I put my newsletters and workbooks and things and writing together. But I wasn't anyone who'd go off to psychic school or would never have a reading. My friends would go and I'd just go, no, what you don't know doesn't hurt you. And I was always scared of death when I was a little girl. And then, having all these near-death experiences certainly changed my way of thinking. And I tried really initially to turn it off. When it all happened, I did not want to know about it. But the more frightened I became of it, the more I tried to shut it down, the worse it became and the more out of control it became.
How did you broach the conversation with your parents and for them to take you seriously rather than saying, Debbie's crazy?
I didn't ever speak to them about it because they just told me that they didn't want to know. Yeah, so they knew that I saw my pop. And then the day before I got married, my nana was in the house because I find everybody has their own smell or their own pheromones. And there was a particular smell about my nana's house. And my future husband and I had pre-purchased a property down the coast, and we were sort of starting to fix it up just before we got married. Then I went home and I stayed home for the couple of days before the wedding. And when I walked in, I said to Mum, Nana's here. And Mum and Nana didn't get on all that well. And I said, oh, Nana's here. And it's my dad's mum. And she said, yeah, I know. She said, I felt something. And it was, this smell was only coming from my bedroom. And when Nana was alive, she always said,
Oh.
she said she wanted to live long enough to see me get married, and she never got to. And but she said, I'll be there. And so she actually was there. And this, after the wedding, it disappeared. And it was kind of like she was just telling me she was there.
So, so that's interesting. So everybody has that ability. So then your mum also has that ability, and she knew. You
I
said,
know, no, or she could smell the smell,
yeah,
but she wouldn't have admitted that. No, my dad's mom, who was in the house, she was psychic, but I didn't know this till after, way after she died. So she, her and her sister, so they came from Tasmania.
yeah,
So my great aunt Etty, she used to go and have flower readings at the Spiritualist Church in the 1940s, which would have been pretty well unheard of back then.
yeah,
And I didn't find out about that till sort of later on. And then my nana bought me the Johnson's game of ESP. But anything mum didn't think we should have, it would be sort of delegated to the top cupboard in her bedroom where you need to get a chair or a ladder to get it out. And so I never got to play with that game, but Nana told me that I should practice with it. Didn't really know why. And then she started to have, everyone said she was going crazy, and she did have a mental breakdown, but she actually was psychic. And so she came over and stayed with us one particular time, and mum had just bought all her cleaning products. So she'd bought her Mr. Sheen and the air fresheners, but they were all in aerosol cans. And Nana came over and threw them all out on her and said she had to get rid of them because they were going to make a hole in the sky, and it was going to affect, you know, the climate of the earth. And she bought me a book on climate change. So I'd have been 9 at that stage, and I still have that book. It was all about pollution, and there was going to be a hole in the sky. And now we look back, it was the ozone layer. And then
yeah.
she used to give us St. George money boxes all the time and told us we had to bank with them. And back then they were a building society, and mum said, you can't bank with them, they're not a bank. And so mum would throw these St. George money boxes out, and Nana said it was going to be one of the biggest banks in Australia one day, which it's pretty huge now. And then the other thing is she lived in Bankstown, and Paul Keating was the actual local member at the time.
Mm.
And she always said that he was going to be Prime Minister one day, which he did end up being. So I look back now and I realise that, she wasn't crazy. She was having visions, but was probably pretty much misunderstood about what she was picking up.
You mentioned that depending on your vibrations, you can either see more negative or positive spirit. And I'll phrase it like that. I think everyone can sort of determine what's meant by that. But if someone doesn't want to, if someone's reached that ability or vibration that they can sense or see spirit, and they are scared and they want to turn it off, is there an ability to turn it off? Can you turn it off?
Yeah, some people can turn it off. A lot of
Okay.
people have got to a point where they ask spirit not to show themselves anymore because it frightens them. It might be especially when a loved one has just passed, and they might say to the person, I want you to show me that you're okay. I have a lot of clients that when I do a reading and then they get upset because they said, I'm so sad I said that because I was just too terrified and I didn't want to see them, but now all I want to do is turn it back on. And I think spirit doesn't want to scare us. Yes, there's ghosts, but a lot of the time they might be asking for help. They might be earthbound. Like I really don't like driving past roadside memorials where somebody's been hit by a car, because a lot of the time they put belongings and things there, and for me it traps the person there that's had that
Oh,
accident.
wow.
So when I drive past, they're still standing there at that site. So I think sort of traps the energy.
So that is one of the things that I wanted to ask you. What is, I mean, we think, okay, people pass on and they go to heaven if you're religious or spiritual. Um, what is, you're saying that they're trapped in the earth realm? How do the realms work?
I don't know exactly everything about it all, but I know that there are different layers. And
Okay.
sometimes if somebody is murdered or they have unfinished business, they might have been murdered, they might have died in a car accident, and they're sort of stuck at the site. Sometimes historical locations, where there was a war, there'll still be energies from there. It doesn't always mean they're always trapped. Sometimes it's just that memory. So some things can be a memory trapped in time of what had happened at that location. But I think we can
Now,
all go to the light.
Just explain that to me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. What do you
Sorry.
mean a memory? I understand conceptually in terms of a spirit trapped in being earthbound, but how does a memory get trapped and then not a spirit be attached to that?
Well, sometimes it's like a residual energy of the land.
Right.
So, say, for example, there was an area that we used to go and do some investigations. It's called Studley Park. It's at Camden. It's on a golf course, but it was actually uh, a house that I think one of the early film studios owners owned, and his little boy drowned there. And then there was military people that were there when it was I think it was First World War. I can't remember. I think it's First World War. We went there to investigate, and so at a certain time, the soldiers would come down the stairs and say it was lunchtime, and say it was 12 o'clock, for example. So we were there around that time, and then the whole place started going crazy. So you could hear all this stomping of boots coming down. It was like a 3-story place coming down the stairs, and then we were standing down where the main area where they would have had their lunch, and there was a guest book because it had been a restaurant at a stage, but it was no longer being used for that at that point. And the book just flipped over, every page just flipped right over, like the wind had got it, and there was no wind inside. And so it was sort of like a memory of time that at that particular time, that's what happened. We had the same thing happen at the Sydney College of the Arts, where it's Callum Park, which is one of the terrible mental hospitals that we had in Sydney. And that was a certain time where the patients would be taken for lunch, and the same thing would happen. So there would be a lot of activity. So it would be just more like it's replaying. It's almost like it's on a I don't know, it's like on a timer that things would happen. It's like Dad might have passed away and he might have come home at 6 o'clock, and he went down to the back gate and came through the back door, and you'd hear his shoes come in. So sometimes that same thing will replay even though they've been passed for 20 years.
Wow. You said everybody can go to the light. What stops people from going to the light? You mentioned unresolved issues.
Yep.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sometimes some people have unfinished business. Sometimes that they feel they didn't get to say goodbye to someone. It can be a whole range of reasons why somebody passes. They might not feel they should be dead. Sometimes when we die suddenly, it's more or less like our souls out of our body, and we don't want to go. We're still very connected to the earth realms. Sometimes it's to make sure that people sort the will out properly before they go, because the will is their will, and yet their family members tend to always fight over them. So they might be hanging around to sort of check that that's done properly. There's quite a lot of different things. Sometimes they stay around because they just want to make contact with their loved ones to say goodbye. So they might have died in the hospital, or they might have died suddenly, and they want to get their message across. And in murder cases, a lot of the time they won't go to the light until there's a resolution to what happened to them.
When you visually see these people, are you seeing them in the state that they physically presented prior to an accident, or are you seeing the injury on them as well?
It can be both. It depends how they wish to show
Wow.
themselves to me. Sometimes when it is an accident or a murder investigation, they will show me what's happened. Sometimes they come through in different ways. It's sorry, that keeps hitting the zipper. So sometimes they might come through to me, especially males. It's been funny. Say they thought they looked pretty hot when they were young, and they had their hair and they've got this nice outfit on. So they might show me when they've got their hair, because they don't want to show me what they look like when they were 80, when they were bald. So they'll show me things like that. I've actually had
So there's vanity in the spirit realm as well.
still vanity, still vanity.
Love it.
I've even, with one murder case I worked on, the girl, she was a model, and each time she'd come in a vision, she'd had different outfits on. So
Wow.
she would show. And sometimes people show me, if when they had short hair, when they had long hair, or I've even had things. One particular lady I did a reading for, because I used to do psychometry, so I would hold a piece of jewelry, and from holding that would be like watching TV. Anyway, I could see her father was deceased, and he appeared over her shoulder, and he's smiling at me, and all I could see was all these gold teeth. And then I said, "Oh, your dad's in spirit." She said, "Oh, well, I'd like you to hold this." So she gave me this big lump of all this molten gold that she was wearing around her neck.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, no.
And then it was like I held it, went, "Oh." I said, "They're your father's teeth, aren't they?" And she said, "Yeah, they are." And he died in South America, and she'd gone a year after he died and got them all taken out and melted them down, and that's what she was wearing around her neck. But he didn't want the gold wasted because there was a lot of gold. That was quite a big blob of gold, and for him, that was his way of showing that he was wealthy. So, he was wearing his wealth in his teeth. So he was very proud to show me these teeth as well.
How do you turn it? You said sometimes you can turn it off, sometimes you can't. When I was having a chat to your business manager, Emma, she was saying sometimes they would just rock up in you around your room before you have a reading with someone. A couple of days, you'll have 20 people standing around your bed, which to me is not a restful night's sleep.
No.
How do you combat that? Because at some point you're going to have to be able to relax, and I would imagine seeing it all the time is not relaxing.
It's just part of my life now. I'm just kind of
Is
used
it?
to
Okay.
it. Well, if I go out for walks, and just if I listen to music, they can't seem to get through as much. But I think I do get to sleep. I mean, there might be times in the middle of the night that they'll come through to me, or I'll get a vision or an idea. But yeah, it's just part of who I am now. I do try to relax, but I don't think I know what relaxing is. I'm always pretty busy doing something.
Do you use them to guide you in terms of what you should do in life? And I say this because this is the first time that I've ever reached out to someone come on and speak and was told, yes, you can have a conversation with Debbie because the spirits have approved you. And I thought that's bloody pressure because I'm not used to having another realm okay me. So do they sort of guide you in regards to what to do?
Yeah, they do if something feels good or something doesn't. But there's times when I will go against what feels right, and then I find it's going to be a challenging experience, shall we say? Because I found it very difficult in the beginning to be hearing these angels or spirit guides talking to me and telling me I couldn't do things, because who are they to say, and where do they come from? I didn't know who they were. So for me, I was very reticent to even embrace any of this. Now I've realized that sometimes they would give me warnings. They've saved my life many times.
Really?
Yes.
Even though you've had 7
Yeah.
near-death experiences?
Yeah, but that's been more through I've had a lot of illness, and I've had a lot of anesthetics. So when I've had anesthetics, I've gone to the light through that and through medical procedures. And I say that like if I've had to have an anesthetic, or I had an allergic reaction to a morphine drip that I was put on. I didn't know I was allergic to morphine. So it's things like that. But when I used to have my office, because I was working on a lot of cases, and when my very first book came out, we went out to Camden Library, and I was always a bit nervous about writing about the police stuff in case anything happened to me. And I thought I'll embrace it, and I did it. But then these guys forced their way into the book talk, and I never had my business card with my address on it before. And these 2 guys that forced their way in, one of them came to buy the book. And when he did, he was sitting in front of me and he's flicking my card in his face saying, "Where do you live? Where do you live?" And I said, "Oh, it's just in the Shire." And he said, "I wouldn't come that far from my honeymoon." But then in my head, my guide said, "But I'd come that far to kill you." So it was a bit scary. And the police were called during the talk because these guys had forced their way in. So I'm doing this talk, and there's like 200 people, and there's police officers walking around in the background. I had no idea what they were there for at the time. And then I was held in the building for about an hour because there was all bikies outside, which I didn't know till later on. But then 6 weeks later, I kept getting this feeling someone was coming after me. And somebody broke into my office. They didn't take anything, but it was just to scare me. It did a good job. And then at a later stage, there was hooded men that were waiting down in the car park when I came down the stairs. Didn't do anything, but it was more or less, just knowing. So yeah, there's been some times, and even just sometimes you might be, walking somewhere and not feeling something's right, and sort of feeling there's someone behind you that shouldn't be there, and so I always listen to what they say because it is of assistance to me.
Mm. And many would put that down to intuition, whereas
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I was having visions before. Well, when you think intuition and psychics, they run parallel. to each other. I mean, we have these psychic gifts that we don't even really even think about. So we've got the psychic clairs. So we've got taste and in our normal sense, but we've also got clairgustance in our psychic sense. So when I'm tuning in and working on something, for example, if it's working on a case, I might taste blood in my mouth, or I might taste a substance, like it might taste like it's a chemical, or it could be alcohol, or it could be cigarette smoke. So that sense still working with my normal senses, and there's another one called clairalience, where and a lot of people have this happen to them. Anyway, you might be thinking of Nana is cetyl hairspray, and then suddenly you get a little waft of cetyl hairspray around you, or you might get a smell of smoke, and pop used to smoke. So sometimes we get these little glimpses and we just think you smell it and it's gone because it doesn't linger for a long time. But that's part of our senses. So we smell it literally, but psychically it can be a message from the other side to say that, oh, Nana's arrived, or someone's arrived.
What should someone do if they feel like there's a spirit in their home? And I'm saying this because my husband felt like there was definitely a spirit, and used to leave physical signs that there was something in his home before I met him. So what would someone do in that sense? He felt that they were a helpful spirit.
Well, it can be a loved one in spirit that's around you that's trying to help you. It could be a guardian angel. It can be the person who lived in the house before you. Sometimes spirits might be happy that you're looking after the house the way they would like. A friend of mine, she had bought like a historical property at Parramatta, and when she started renovating, the house started going off and things were going crazy. She had her wedding photos on the wall, and they kept flying off, and the glass would break. And then she was having so many problems. The bell would go in the middle of the night, and she was seeing a lady that was standing there in like an old cotton nightie or nightgown with a candle on, sort of like a little candle holder at the end of the bed. And then when she started sort of checking with the neighbours, she found out that the people who lived there before her had sold the house because they'd had the priest so many times to clear the house and they couldn't. So they ended up inheriting the ghosts. So sometimes, spirit can stay. It's called psychometry, will go into jewelry and clothing, but it's also will go into locations like a house or even in the land. So it's energy. But I think with your husband, I feel it's when they're being cheeky, it can be a cheeky spirit guide that was working there. It could be his grandfather, that was around him. So it could be a loved
Because
one.
he used to have all the doors in the kitchen used to be open at 45, or the cabinet doors at exactly 45 degrees. There was an old dryer there that he never used to go out while it was on, and he forgot one day. And when he ran back, when he realized it was unplugged and the electricity switch was turned off, and he was living by himself, so there was something going on in that house.
Well, we have things like that here. We went. We have a little 9-month-old puppy, and she's not used to it being by herself. And we went to I don't like the football, but my husband does. So I said to him I'd go because he wanted someone to go with him. So I went to the football, and we forgot to leave the light on and the TV on for her because the kids have just sort of gone overseas. So there was no one in the house, and normally there's always someone here. Anyway, when we were coming home, we weren't gone that long. We got home about 8 o'clock, and I said to him, "We should have left the TV on for the dog at least, and a light on so that at least she could hear voices." We get home, and the TV was turned on in the lounge room, and we didn't turn it on. And I said, "Oh, look, your dad's come around to make sure the dog was all right because his dad's in spirit." So, and we get the fans upstairs going. They'll turn themselves on. The TVs turn themselves on all the time now. The other night I was here, and the dog can see spirit as well, and sitting up the front of the house, and this is sort of the back here where my office is, and you could hear all this stomping and banging coming down the stairs, and even the dog could see it. I could see she's looking at me, looking at the stairs like, "What's going on, Mum?" And said to my husband, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it, it's all good." And then it came past, and it was a male, and it came past, and it banged on the window right next to him, and he said, "Oh, look, I'm watching the footy, I don't care." And then it was sort of banging around, and then it stopped. But sometimes that can happen if I'm doing a reading, so somebody might be arriving the day before I'm doing one. But generally, I just sort of feel it's, family members trying to get our attention.
Can you see animals as well as people?
Yes, I can.
So how do animals communicate? Because normally they aren't speaking in a human voice.
Yeah.
So how do they communicate to you when they're on the other side?
It's more like mental images. It's like watching little video screens for me, and
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's like a telepathic type of way. It's like I can do readings for people who don't speak English as well, and I don't
Oh
speak
wow.
another language. So sometimes I've had people come with an interpreter, but I'll be able to see it because the person in spirit, they might show me the look of the house, or they'll show me different scenarios, and I'll relay what it feels like to me, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, how did you know that?" Or, you know, "How did you see that?" But that's, it's like watching TV sometimes.
How does your husband, I mean, it sounds like he's fairly nonplussed about it now with TVs going off and fans going on, and he's probably so used to it. But how did he initially sort of come to terms with the fact that this was going to be his life, that there was going to be poltergeist stuff going on all the time?
Not very impressed, to be honest. I think he told me I had to stop it and to turn it off because I wasn't like it when he married me. So I'd had to just get over it and get rid of it. And the funny part is all the kids are all very intuitive. The two younger ones more so. And when his father passed away, we had too many undeniable things happening and messages from his father, and so now yes, he believes, and he gets a few things. He doesn't always see a lot of things. He's had a few scares though, which is, we all laugh about that. We think it's only fair, so he has to sort of experience it as well.
That's funny. That's really funny. I could imagine that if you're not used to it, and then suddenly the woman that you love are married, seeing all this sort of stuff and everything's happening, it could be a little unsettling.
Definitely.
How did you get to start working with the police? Because you describe yourself also as a psychic detective. You work on cold cases, and we won't go into specifics of the cases for obvious reasons. But how did you start working with them? Because I would imagine working with the police, their very fact-based, evidence-based career court systems. How does Debbie come along and say, you need to listen to me, I am telling you factual information about this case, and then them believe you, I suppose, in terms of that?
That was really hard. I had a miscarriage, and then I was the backpacker murders were a big thing at the time, and I was actually working at Fairfax community newspapers, and I started having lots of visions, and I didn't know what they were. I was like coming in a dream, and I didn't know what was going on to start with. But then I started to see things before they were announced on the news. And at first, I just thought I was just watching too much because at that time, the internet wasn't what it is. I don't even know if it was really around, because I've been
Probably
doing
not
this
back
nearly
then.
31 years. So no. So it was a really big time where things were a lot different, and just there was, you see now we get flooded with things, but every day there was a bit more about the backpacker murders, a bit more, and then I started to see all this information, and I it started to come true, and I spoke to a friend of mine because we went down to Bowral because all the boys, they were all playing baseball. We went down for a weekend away, and when I was down there, it was really strong, and I started getting more and more information. And I spoke to one of my girlfriends and said, "Look, this is happening. I don't know what's going on." And then she sort of came to realize that what I was seeing was coming true. So she put me in contact with a friend of hers who was a police officer, and then it went from there. And then her friend's husband was also a police officer, and he was part of Task Force Air. And so I started to relay the information to him, and then they were interested in some of the things that I was saying to them. So then they put me in touch with the task force, and then I had to run through so many things like, have you got mental health issues, and what are your doctor's names, a whole lot of stuff, and then they asked me would I keep a diary after lots going through lots of hoops, and they just said, look, because they said just ring us when you get something, because they had like a sort of a call center type thing. So then they said to me, what you might be better off to do is just write things down and keep like a diary, and we'll assign two officers to you, and they'll come and pick it up or interview you. So I was supposed to go with them and meet them, and then they discovered I was pregnant, so they didn't want anything to do with me because it could have been detrimental, and because I was going to go into hypnosis for them then. But then I just kept writing all the information down, and then things started to happen like more and more, and I sort of knew things ahead of time. And then I spoke to one of the journalists there, and I was telling him what was going on, and he said, "Well, why don't we write a story about you?" And he said, "Now, which paper do you want? And we had, I think there was over 30 local papers that it could have gone to. And they said, here's the demographics, pick the map. And I wanted the MacArthur Advertiser. That was the one that jumped out at me. So the main story went in there and they called me Julia. They just said I was having these visions. And then through that, Ivan Blatt's girlfriend contacted the newspaper and wanted to have contact with me. And I had a lot of contact on the phone, but never met in person. And so I'd sort of just write things down of what I got, and then I'd give the information to the police. But then I started to know too much. And before I was doing the diary, the police sort of said to me, when I knew things, they were worried that I was involved, because it was like, where are you on certain days? So what's your alibi? What have you been doing? And it was a bit frightening. I had a fake electricity man come to my house during this stage. My son was only 6 weeks old by then. And I remember ringing the police and telling them there was something going on, and we'd only had our power board checked 2 weeks before, and this strange guy was hanging out the front, and he was in a Sydney electricity car. And I rang the electricity board and they said no one was supposed to be there. And I went to open the door because he knocked on the door. When I went to open the door, I was kind of thrown back as if to say, don't touch the door. And I didn't have a screen door on the door.
Oh my goodness, I've gone all goosebumpy.
Yeah, it was terrifying. And then I the way my house used to be set up, I went to the kitchen and I could see my car was parked outside the kitchen window, and we had like a ramp on the side of the house to get in before we renovated. So I looked outside and I could see in the reflection on my car a guy lying pushed flat against the wall with a big he had like wire coiled up in his hand. I couldn't see his face, but I could just see him pushed up like back to the wall, so I couldn't see him. So if I had opened the door, he would have grabbed me. And so I said, who's there? And there was no answer, and I just didn't say anything. Then he was hanging around out the front for probably another hour. And I rang the task force and said, there's something's going on. I don't know what's going on. They just said, just get out of the house and we'll just sort of keep an eye on you. And I went to a friend's place who was very psychic, and I went to her learning circle to try and learn to shut it all down. So I stayed with her for the day. And then it was weird. It all sort of settled down. I don't know what that was about, but it was just really frightening. And it made me think, I don't want to do this. It's too scary. My life, my family could be in danger because of this. And so it was a lot of soul searching and thinking, well, why did you get involved with this? Why are you doing it? What is the point of it? Because I wasn't involved with any of the things that had happened, yet that was bringing that energy to me. So it really made me think about it. So I said I'd never do it anymore. Sort of once they'd sort of gone through all the backpacker stuff, I thought, no, I'm not doing it. And then I started working on the Haunted Sydney tours that used to be in Sydney. It used to drive around in Sydney in a hearse, and they go on ghost tours. And I was asked whether I would do readings between each location. So I did that. I used to do that every, say, 3 or 4 months for a bit of fun, and do readings and do spirit photography. And it used to take off from King's Cross. And this one night I'd done a tour. I came home, went to bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had this dream about, I was in the hearse. The hearse was called Elvira, and it was a black hearse. And so in my dream, I was in Elvira and I was in the passenger side. And the owner of the car, Alan, he was sitting there driving. And we're at the lights and we stopped, and I looked across, and there was this young lady, and she was in a hearse with a guy with dark hair, like black hair. And I just didn't like the look of him. And she was so beautiful and young and carefree. She was about 18, 19. But she was in a hearse as well, which was kind of crazy. But the hearse had no roof, and I could see a really clear view, but it was a hearse. And I thought, it's a really stupid dream. Don't even know what this is going on about. And 2 weeks later, this same girl was, had a missing persons thing on, and she was missing, and it was her. And one of the detectives who I'd worked with on the backpacker murders was in charge of the case. And I thought, this is a sign I have to help. So I got myself back involved again, and then I ended up working with them for quite a while. I didn't end up solving the case, and I've never found a body. So I don't say that I'm, it's not like Medium. You go to the location, you say X marks the spot, and there's the body, and there's this and there's that. It's not like that. I do identikits. I can profile. I can do a lot of things, but that's one thing that I haven't ever done. I've gone out with work with some of the gorgeous guys from the dog unit. We've done a lot of work together, and we've found information and clues, but not, like I said, not a body. So I ended up going down to Tumut, where this young lady's name was Neve May, where she went missing. And the guy in the it's not in the sorry, the guy in the hearse was actually the suspect, which I didn't know at the time. So I had some pieces of jewelry of hers sent to me, tuned in. Then I went down, and I was um, very blessed to have met her beautiful family, and they embraced me, and they were just really lovely. So I drove down with them because they come from Armidale. So they picked me up on the way, and we went down to Tumut together. And I sort of had to tune into maps and things and gave them all the clues of things I had seen. And then we went out in the car and we were driving down to the location. And I described what this man looked like anyway. They gave me a photo, and it was him, the guy in the hearse. It was him and her in the photo. And then part of the visions I saw was that we needed to go on a road near black and white cows, and there's not a lot of black and white cows down in that area, and there was only one way you could go. So they drove me past there, and we went to a certain part, and we were going for Blowering Dam, and we got to the top of this hill, and it had been raining, and all the road was washed out, so we couldn't get down there. So we had to turn around and go back, and they said, "Well, where do you want to go?" And I don't know. I just told them where to go. I'd never been there, but it was just I felt like Neve was with me, telling me what we had to do. And we got down there, and we get out of the car, and they had another photograph. And we stopped. And they said, "Where do you want to stop?" I said, "I want to stop here." And this bit of bush beside us, there's something there. And we stopped, and they said, "Well, you know where you're standing, don't you?" And I said, "No." And they gave me the photo, and they said, "This is him and her." And there's a picture of him. She's standing beside him with the hearse, and he's in the image. So I thought, this is it. I found the spot. It's great. We're going to find it. And they've done it. They did a number of searches. I'd gone down for 2, and we didn't find her. And I was absolutely heartbroken because I felt like I'd failed. And he'd subsequently, before he did the search, he had tried to attack somebody else up in Brisbane, and he was under police arrest, and he got away, and he jumped off a multi-level car park and killed himself. So they didn't even get to find out through him. So out of all the cases, I think that probably haunts me the most, because she was alive when I had the vision. Until like 2 weeks later, she was dead, and I didn't know who she was.
How do you energetically protect yourself from the spirits that don't have a high vibration?
I work on a higher vibration myself. So the higher and more elevated my energy is, the harder it is for them to be around me. Working on cases, yes, you've got to drop your frequency. But I white light, and I do work very closely with my guardian angels, spirit guides, and my spirit team, I'd have to say. There are times, like I did a show called Scream Test in 1999, and they got around 30 people, and when they were all put on a bus, and we had to go to different like to one location first to be checked to pick, and they ended up picking 20 people to go to 4 locations, and I was taken to Maitland Jail with 4 other people, and I got physically attacked there. I ended up with strangulation marks on my neck for 18 months after that.
Wow.
And it was really quite frightening, and it really taught me a lot. It was terrifying. So we were taken there with a bag on our head, and we just we sat in a van for about an hour and a half, just pitch black with a bag on your head. So you were already frightened. You couldn't have a watch, couldn't have a phone. You just had to sit there in silence. They didn't tell us where we were going. And then suddenly they take us there, and I just thought, we're going to a jail. I just could feel it. Open the van up, pull us out with the bags on our head, take the bag off, and it's like, right, you're here. Welcome to hell. And we sort of went through, had to go through, and they lock us in all different cells for I don't know how long, because we didn't have a watch or anything. And when you're terrified, sitting in pitch black in the dark, it seems like it could be an hour, but it could be 5 minutes. Yeah, so it's like, oh. And you weren't allowed to film unless you had the light on. So we had an EMF tester, we had a temperature gauge, and a video camera. So what I thought, if I'm going to be smart, if I'm scared stiff in the light, sitting in the dark, I would film and have the light on. What they would do first, they'd throw you in the cell, lock you in there in the dark, play a video of all the horrible things that happened in the cell, then turn it off, and just had to sit there. And so your imagination's starting to go crazy. But they also put fake noises and sounds in there. But I could hear psychically. So what they were doing and what was real with the ghost was completely different to what I was hearing. But I came out, like I said, I had those strangulation marks on my neck. I scratched on the face. I got thrown around. I had a lot of stuff happening. I could feel men urinating on me when I was in one certain area. I got, the strangulation. I felt like I was being lifted by the throat. I couldn't breathe. And then when I went back to the motel afterwards, because everybody else quit, they didn't make it through the whole night, through all the cells. but I'm stubborn and maybe stupid, and I was not going to quit. So I got through it, but then I had to suffer the consequences. But it really made me understand that, it's not all good stuff. And I think a lot of people love going to haunted locations and thinking, wouldn't it be fun for the ghost to show me, or for them to come home with me, or for them to give me proof? And you've got to be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it, and it's not
Well,
always pleasant.
I was going to ask you about, you mentioned then come home with me. Uh, and I mean, you said that everyone's got psychic ability, but I would never say that I've psychic, but certainly I get sometimes very strong feelings in terms of this is not like I need to get out of this house, or it could be, I used to do real estate. So it used to be like, or it's
Yeah,
not a
you feel
nice
the energy.
energy in regards to the house, or, certain rooms you walk in and it's it's a yucky sort of feeling and an urgency in regards to you've got to get out of that room. Can spirit attach themselves to someone and then just basically follow them around? Like if you go into, and it may not be a negative energy that attaches, it could be a high frequency, but can you have them attached to you, and then how do you get rid of them?
Yeah, well, they can attach to you. And you're saying about the yucky feelings. That's again
Mm,
psychometry, because that's the energy, residual energy left from the past. So you
mm,
might find that, say somebody bought a house and then it's a divorce sale, then that energy's still there. So when you go to the next person that buys, they might get divorced because that energy's still there. So what you need to do is to clear things, or they can, they might be attached to you because what happens, they might see that that they're aware, that they're around. That it's like we're the lighthouse and they're the ship lost at sea. It's a bit like Ghost, in the movie Ghost, when they're in the subway, where the guy, that homeless guy's there and he's dead, and then he sort of sees other
okay.
people, and he attaches. Well, they sometimes they'll attach to you because they'll see that you can see them, and they might be hanging around you because they want help. They might be there to help you. They might be there to guide you. Positive ones aren't going to cause you problems. It's the negative ones or the lost souls, and sometimes people who have addictions, sometimes they've got addictions, but then because they have an addiction, then they might be attracting other people who had addictions who are now in spirit, and they don't have a body anymore, so they're going to need a host to give them the alcohol or the drugs or whatever that addiction can be. So they can attach through things like that. So it can come through in different ways. You can white light yourself in sort of, protecting you and lifting your frequency, but also smudging your house is, or using Tibetan singing bowls. There's a whole lot of different ways you can do it. That's another way to clear the energy.
How often do you think you should do that as an individual that's not working with spirit? I mean, you're obviously probably need to do it every 2 seconds, but what,
Probably,
what
yeah.
for the layperson out there that's just walking around through life and going to the office and stuff, how often do you think that they should be, as a regular practice, smudging and clearing themselves and their space that they live in?
No, I think, if you're feeling negative energy in the house, or you just want to sort of give it a spring clean, I think it's good to, to do that. So at least once a year would be good, but of course, probably more so. And if you're feeling that everybody's feeling really sick at the moment, or everybody's feeling really negative or anxious or angry, that's another sign to sort of start to lift the vibration. The other, and to clear the house or smudge it. The other thing is about you being grounded, because if you're not grounded, you're going to be scatty. So sometimes when you're working too much, and I think sometimes when we're on the computer too much, that can also be part of it, because spirit likes energy. They feed off energy, whether it's electrical energy or human energy. It's energy, or if it's earth energy. So I think it's really important, when you're finding that you're a bit scatty or you're getting a bit angry or grumpy, get outside, go in the garden, go for a walk, go to the beach, go in the water. I use the shower a lot. I white light every morning. White light on, showers around me, and wash any negativity off and put my little force field on at the end of the day, have another shower, washing anything that might have attached during the day, and also saying to any spirits that, I'm going to sleep now, it's time to go away and leave me alone. So I try to do it that way, but sometimes if it's urgent, they might come through. But I really think, yeah, being grounded as possible, and sort of being in a balanced space is important.
I was reading that you were thinking or feeling, I don't know how to correctly state it, but there is a global awakening happening in regards to the spirit world. What do you
Yeah.
mean by that?
I think since COVID hit, it's actually hastened everything, and we've had a lot of time on our own,
Mm.
and we've had a lot of deaths and, anxiousness and depression. And being in lockdown, it's been a big thing. I think a lot of people being stuck at home, not being free and able to get out and about. And I think the anxiousness of death, because death's been staring us down the face. Like, it's kind of like when COVID first hit, it was kind of like, oh my god, I could go to the supermarket, I could be dead because I passed someone else who's given me COVID. Like, we had a lot of that. Not really having the knowledge of what could be. It was like we're going through an apocalypse. The way that the
Well,
thought was.
Debbie, I was in Melbourne, so
Well, hello, yeah,
hello, we had counters on every second of the running of death numbers, and the
exactly.
control by fear was a real thing.
Definitely. But I think through that happening, I think it made us, a lot of us, sort of going within and starting to think about spiritual practices or being positive or even meditating and trying to think of the good things. And it's made us a lot more aware of things. Look, we've all born with these abilities, but whether or not you use them is another thing. Like, people can people can be a runner or they might be a swimmer, but it doesn't mean they're going to be an Olympian. But I think when we practice things and work with them and exercise that muscle, so that psychic muscle, or use that, what I call our spiritual or psychic GPS, when we start to work with that's when we can start to, sort of think about what's our meaning in life. Because I think a lot of us started to think about that. And, you think about, you could be dead tomorrow. You don't know how long you're here for anymore. And was so many people of all different age groups just suddenly left the earth all at once. And it wasn't just in Australia, being global. I think a lot of us started to really contemplate and think, well, I don't know how long I'm here for, but I want to make the most of it, and I want to make a difference or do something meaningful and create memories that are happy instead of being miserable and depressed. And I think that's part of what this awakening is. But lots of people saying, I'm hearing things, I'm seeing things, I'm feeling things. I don't know what they are. And it's like, I had it when I was little, but I shut it down, but it's really here now. I can't get rid of it. And that's how I had it happen to me. It's kind of like, I got to the point, if you can't beat them, join them. So I felt like, if I'm going to have this, and at first it was like, if I'm going to have this curse, for want of a better word, is it a gift or is it a curse? But I started to think, well, I'm going to make the most of it, and I'm going to use it in a positive light. And if I can use it to help other people, then so be it. It must have been for a reason. And, even if I don't know what that reason is, I just think, if there was somebody like me that could help me, if I had things, say I'd lost a family member, or I needed a message from the other side, and I, wasn't able to connect myself, and I needed that help, I would hope that there would be somebody there that would like to help me understand that, and to, not to be frightened or be fearful that when we're dead, we're dead.
If someone wants to develop their ability, how does one go about it in a safe manner? And how do you find the people that are able to guide you to do that in a safe manner?
And that's the biggest thing, in the safe manner, is an extremely important thing to bring up.
Mm.
I'm finding at the moment, with the awakening, there's good things with the awakening and not so good things. And a lot of people are really embracing, they're wanting to use other psychic tools, which are fine, but I think you need to do it safely. Like people playing with Ouija boards, or, wanting to have that quick fix and getting that information to come through quickly. With spirit, the negative ones will interact with you a lot quicker than the more positive ones, because the negative ones are on our plane. They're already on our, well, probably our frequency is not always as high as it could be, in the earth realm. Theirs is on a higher vibration. So, people that play with Ouija boards, or, they might use cards. It just, not that cards are bad either, but I think you need to sort of do it in a safe environment. You always need to protect yourself and do, whether you say a positive affirmation or a prayer, or protect yourself with white light. I think setting a high intention is the most important thing. And you want positive information coming through. You don't want negative stuff coming through if you can't do anything with it. I think it's a matter of something for somebody's highest good. And I think it's being really mindful when people do readings. You don't sort of say to someone, "Oh yeah, well, I'm just seeing you, and by the way, you're going to be dead in 6 months because you're going to get hit by a car." I mean, that's what good is that to say to someone? But I've met people who have been told that by the time they were 30, they were going to die in a plane crash. In their whole life, they didn't do anything till after 30 because they were terrified they were going to die in a plane crash. But the thing is, if you've got this thought that I'm going to die in a plane crash, I'm going to die, you're actually manifesting it, and you're bringing it closer and closer and closer. So I think it's a matter of think about, if we can't control everything, but I think we can be as positive as possible and focus on, if you're getting a message, what is it for my highest good? What's going to, be better for me? How can I improve things? Not how can I control somebody, or how can I make my boyfriend come back when he's happily off with somebody else. I think it's a matter of, we have to be responsible for our own thinking, but also that we're being guided and being positive, not being controlling and manipulative.
If you feel that you've got spirit entities, energies around you, how can you help them pass on? They're obviously stuck in this realm. How can you help them move towards the light?
Sometimes you can personally do it by even imagining being with them and, lighting a candle for them, and or doing a meditation. I even imagine it's like, when it's been raining and then the sun sort of comes between the clouds. It's like the ray of lights from heaven. So I will even imagine taking them to the light and walking up the stairways with them to take them into the light and take them as high as they go. And I encourage them and tell them that their loved ones are there waiting to be with them, and it's their time to leave. So you can do it that way. Otherwise, sometimes contacting the spiritualist church, or some people might use a priest if they want to do that. I think you can do it that way. I think it's more a matter of just trying to be. Oh, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Then sorry, I just lost that thought.
And I go, who's coming in and talking to you to make you lose a train of thought? Whereas me, I'm just like, la 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 la, squirrel.
No, they were saying to me that when you were talking about, I should have mentioned something before, and they went mad on me then, and said, you're talking about being positive, about doing things mindfully, and how staying safe when you're working with spirit. They just said to me, I forgot to mention that, going and joining a learning circle or a meditation group or like-minded souls, and sort of doing it safely. So where you've got someone who's going to guide you through it. Or, I mean, of course, there's lots of information on the internet, and there's lots of books. But I think it's sometimes it's better to be in your tribe. When I say tribe, like other like-minded people who have got the same intention. So that's why they were going mad on me about that.
When you don't know, if you're reading something on the internet, you don't know the person that's written its intention behind it. So you don't know if it's what vibrational level it's at.
No. Well, a lot of the time too, a lot of the messages can be similar. So if you've got a certain feeling that you're drawn to, and then you find that similar positive impression, it might be that one of the very first books I was reading was Dawn Hill, and then there was Rosemary Althea, and they always, when people are talking about the light, I find if you're talking about the positive stuff, and a lot of mediums or psychics or just people who are spiritual, it's about that protection and feeling safe and loved and uplifted. Then that's the positive. It's like if you want to make contact with spirit and you feel terrified and you feel frightened, or you're feeling pain, or you're feeling anxiousness or anger, well, then you're picking up negative energies. But when you're picking up positive stuff, your guardian angel and spirit guide's going to tell you positive things, and they're going to help you, and sort of, it might give you inspiration to do something positive. If you're getting messages telling you to go and kill yourself, or that that you're no good, that you're useless, that everybody hates you and you're worthless, well, then you're on a negative frequency. So I think it's trying to discern. It's like if you had a friend speaking to you like this in life, you'd be going, well, I don't really like you being around me. Your energy's not right. And if you have a friend being positive and saying, oh, you're great, I love being around you, your energy's great, and and you feel happy around that person, well, then that's a positive energy in the living. And it's the exact same kind of feeling in the, with the spirit realm. If spirit's telling you bad things and being horrible to you and making you feel worthless, well, what do you want to be around that for?
When people come to you for readings, What do you find is the common thread that they come to you for? Is it to get answers? Is it just to connect? What I don't want to do is do an education thing in regards to how people can do it, but I'm interested in terms of, you've mentioned that you connect through a photo. You've mentioned that you've connected through jewelry as well. So I'm interested in that process, that how you do it broadly, but also what is the main reason why people come to you for psychic readings?
So many different reasons, you
Really?
know.
Okay.
Yeah, so it can be about connection with a family member. It could be how they can be more in control of their abilities, or, you know, wanting to work more with spirit, you know, and understanding what that ringing in their ear is, you know. And it's tinnitus, but yes, it can be spirit's frequency of them trying to give you messages or give you clear audience. It could be business advice that people have. It might be they're doing family history and they're trying to track back some family, you know, the family tree, and trying to find out where things go. It could even be about children who see spirit, or, you know, that they're having nightmares. So it might be sort of working out how they can help their children. Um, it could be they've got a loved one who's they didn't get to say goodbye to, so they, you know, want to be able to say goodbye. And a lot of it's about contact, of course, but a lot of people want to know about career, you know, health, wealth, love. I don't get the lotto numbers, but, you know, people people want that. The hardest thing is, I find, when somebody wants me to tell them how to bring their boyfriend back. Ain't gonna happen. Everyone has free will. If somebody, you know, it's like, but I want him back, but then I see he doesn't want to come back, and we can't control things. And maybe the timings, you know, maybe the time you're meant to be together was that period of time. But sometimes there's times when I see them coming back and then they do, or they might come to me about fertility. And I'm not a doctor, and I don't ever portray that I am, or that I have medical knowledge, but sometimes, you know, I've had a lot of little ones that I've seen in spirit around their mum when I'm talking to them, and I sort of say to them, oh, you know, or otherwise I'll see them pregnant and I'll actually see the baby in their tummy. You know, then then they'll ring me and say, oh, you know, yes, I'm pregnant now. I've had a child. There was one lady I saw. She was gorgeous. She already had 4 children, and the 2 youngest were twins. And she's sitting there, and this little boy kept sitting on the floor, and I usually see them around the age of 2, and he was sitting on the floor and he's playing with some blocks and having a lovely time. And I said, oh, are you thinking of having any more children? She said, no, definitely not. I'm finished. Got, you know, they're getting too old now, and I've got twins are the littlest ones. I said, there's a little boy there. No, no, don't. She said, just look above the lounge. Don't look down there. And 6 weeks later, she rang me and she said, guess what? I'm pregnant. And it was like, oh. And she said, it's your fault. And I said, you know how he got in there? I had nothing to do with it. And he's about 19 now, so I think it's really funny. And she said, you know, he was just a blessing, a little blessing that, you know, came and chose the family and chose to be with them.
What do you think the biggest misconception about psychic abilities and mediumship is? Because I suppose someone goes, oh, well, they're a psychic or a medium, you know, they're going to be able to bring up Elvis at will, or, you know, whatnot. Like, what is the biggest misconception? Who are you randomly having conversations with?
Yeah, true. Well, it's funny because where my office used to be, I'd see people walking down the street talking to themselves, and I didn't see anybody with them. And I could see dead people, so I don't know if they were on a different frequency or, or what was going on. But I think the difference is with, you know, mediumship, you do see spirit and you can communicate with them. But then clairaudience, you can hear spirit but not see them. And clairvoyance is seeing things, but clairvoyant doesn't necessarily see dead people. They might see symbology, or they might see about your past, present, or your future. And some people are clairsentient, so they might feel it. So people can do readings and they can feel things in themselves, but they don't necessarily see it. But sometimes, you know, you can, with working with your gifts, not everybody, but you can activate them and, you know, get them all working together, you know, so they can come through in different ways. But yeah, it's hard because people, when you say you're a medium, it's like, oh yeah, whatever, you know. And
Should
it's
be opening the door before I ring the doorbell, that sort of a thing.
it can be, yeah, definitely. Or knowing he's on the phone before they answer. But then that can also come. The clairvoyance and the mediumship come pretty close together, but people can be psychic but not be a medium, so they can know things about the future, but they might not see dead people. But a lot of the time it works together, but not always. It just, yeah, it's there's lots of different gifts. There's 8 different ones, and a lot of them work hand in hand. Like we get claircognizance, which everybody gets, where you get that light bulb moment that goes off the top of your head. You might be thinking of something, but you don't really know the answer. And then it just sort of pops off and you think, wow, where did that come from? And everybody gets that, but we just go, oh, that's a light bulb moment, you know, but it's actually another psychic sense, but it doesn't, it comes out of nowhere. So it's kind of a harder one to trace compared to some of the other ones that we have.
I think one of the main questions that people probably have, and I'm going to pose to you now, is heaven real?
Well, from my own personal experience, yes. I can only go on what I've seen. I didn't see pearly gates, and I didn't see, you know, I didn't see God sitting there sort of saying, okay, well, you're Catholic, you're over here, or you're, you know, Buddhist, or you're this or you're that. It's more on energy. Um, for me, the most vivid near-death experience for me was when I was 33. I had to have a major operation, and my daughter was 1, my other son was 3, my other son was 7, and I knew I was going to die. I didn't know why I knew I was going to die, but I just knew I was going to die. So I even got a will made the night before. I found out that I was allergic to morphine, and I was put on a morphine drip. So I actually overdosed from that because I had a pump, and they kept telling me to pump it. And when I did, I went. And I had this most incredible journey. And from that point on, I've never been fearful of death. It's more fearful of leaving my loved ones before I've had enough time with them, I think. But yeah, my experience was, it was like going, I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Contact?
Yes. Is it the
So,
alien one where she falls through the? Yeah.
well, that for me was what it was like. So I went, it was like I was on a craft. It was like I was shooting really, really quickly through time and space. And I saw that movie 2 weeks after I'd had the near death experience. And when I saw it, I just sat there and bawled. It was like, that's what I saw. But it was like me going, I was a lot of shaking going on. I wasn't in any pain. I was shooting very quickly up. I love the night sky because it's like that's home. And I was part of everything. I was like, I was part of space. But I was like, times of being really quick and other times of being slow. It was like being on this roller coaster in one way, but then I was part of all of the galaxies. So I could see the stars up close, but then I would slow and I was just like I was floating. Next thing you know, I was getting sucked through like a black hole and going through really, really fast. And then I ended up getting into
Terrifying. It sounds terrifying.
it. Yeah, I suppose at the time it was. Now I've come back. It's kind of like, wow, that was a pretty cool journey. Then I went through like this tunnel, and when I was going through the tunnel, there was a lot of other people, but it was like the pinhole, and then it was just the light was getting brighter and brighter, and then I more or less came up and landed in what looked like a meadow, and the grass was a bit greener than I'm sorry, a bit taller than, it was about this tall, so probably I don't know, about 15 centimeters tall. It was a bit of a breeze. It was just swaying back and forth in the breeze, and there was all these people lined up in front of me, and there was like a little privet hedge, and there was like a little opening in the privet hedge, and there was these 2 people on the other side, and they were letting everybody come through. And it was my turn to go through. And I'm one of those people, I hate people when they push in front of you in the deli line, or, you know, I always wait. So I'm standing there, and it was my turn to go through. And the people on the other side of this hedge, and I could have jumped the hedge easily, it wasn't that tall. And they were all just, everything just looked so happy and joyous. And all I could feel was love. I just felt so at peace. And the colors look more vibrant than what they are here. And I remember them saying, no, you can't come through now. And I was really angry. I was like, what do you mean? I'm here. They all went through. Why can't I come through? And they said, turn around. So I turned around, and it was like I was up in the sky, and then I could see my husband and my 3 children on the ground pointing up. And they were saying to my husband, the two older ones were saying, where's mummy? Where's mummy? And he said, mummy's not coming back now. She's in heaven, or she's gone to heaven. And so still get emotional.
I know, I can tell. Sorry.
That's all right. But yeah, it was
And
weird
that pulled
because
you back.
that pulled me
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I woke up in the hospital, and the nurse was shaking me because I'd said to her that I might, you know, that I was going to the light, and she was saying, not on my shift. Too much paperwork. So she's mucking around. And and then after that, the the um, the doctors came and asked me what happened. And because I told them just before they knocked me out that I was going to die, and they just said, oh, well, you know, and why do you think that? And I said, because I'm psychic and I had a vision, and they didn't believe me. But then afterwards, they asked me what I saw. And then I was in hospital for a month. I was not supposed to be in for 3 days, but I was so sick, I was in for a month. And then they said I could go home, and I could see I had this new gift after that, and I could see this great big black spot on my left hand side, and they said to me, I said that black spot's not gone, and they said, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine." And I ended up coming home and got an infection, and they discovered it was a vault hematoma, and I had to get rushed back to hospital again.
What's a vault
And
hematoma? Some
so
sort
it's
of a bruise.
a big blood clot,
Oh,
and then
okay.
I got infected, and so then I ended up being back in hospital. And yeah, so from that point onwards, things really started to shift. But that, and then I couldn't sleep. I was really sick for a long time, and then when I saw Contact, I just sat there in awe. I was like, oh my god, that was it. And I'm a mad photographer. I love the night sky. I went especially to Norway just to see the auroras, because I just had to, because that for me was, it's just heaven, and I love looking at the stars, and I felt like that's home. Yeah, it's but I've had, the last one I had was 2.5 years ago, and I was told that I had carcinoid lymphoma and that I'd probably be dead by February. And I was going through all the tests to see where the cancer was, and the last test I was having was a PET scan, and I had an allergic reaction to the radioactive iodine, and I went again, and I I went up above the earth, and I was like, I was watching the earth, and it's like, when you see those images from the spacecraft, how you see the sun coming up over the earth. I could see this light coming up, but I had all these angels around me, and I felt like I was in this big angel's arms, and he was just holding me, and I was just floating there. And then I ended up getting dropped back down, and I was in the room, and the nurse said, "Are you all right?" I said, "No." I'd sort of come to, and I said, "Something's wrong." And she said, "Oh no, you seem okay," and she just ignored me. And then I had to have the CAT scan, and when I went in there, the guy was really rude to me, and he sort of said to me, "I don't want I don't know what you're here for. There's nothing wrong with you." And it was like, you're wasting my time, because they'd rushed me in, especially because it was like a late Friday night, and they turned everything off. Like, they did the test, and then they just left me, and I couldn't see. I couldn't hardly walk. I managed to find my way down. I got my husband to come and get me, and I was really sick for another 2 weeks, and my vision was really gone, and I was really just in a pretty bad state. And then the results came back as a false positive, and I was fine. So whatever they did, I'm grateful for, and I thank them. They do lots of weird things, because I had to have an operation last year on my foot. I had uh, a ganglion, a big ganglion on my ankle, and I always have to warn them about the anaesthetics. And I'd said to this particular doctor, and he goes, "Oh yeah, we'll see what happens." And while I'm lying on the trolley waiting to go into the operating theatre, the sound "Stairway to Heaven," the song says "Stairway to Heaven," was playing full bore, and I'm lying on there thinking, is this another one? And I was a bit scared. When I came back to, he sort of said to me, "Did you have an NDA?" And I said, "No." I said, "But why were you playing Stairway to Heaven? You scared the crap out of me." And he said, "We weren't playing that song at all." So I don't know what was going on, but anyway, I'm still here. So thank you.
That's a very good thing. It's I think that's also a reason why people need to be careful in regards to who they're doing that with, because there is a real side of things as well. It's not just Ouija boards. It's not just, there are consequences to things that people do, and it's can be, particularly in movies and, all that sort of stuff. It's a bit of party fun and
Yes.
skylarking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, tarot cards are safe if they're in the right hands. And, people, you know, when people want to cast spells and things, I mean, there's different forms of witchcraft as well. And I know when I first was trying to look into this more, books back then, like, the type of book I've written now, that would be classed, as esoteric. Now it's becoming mainstream,
Mm.
and a lot of people, we were all born with these abilities. I think, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have TV. You think back to, even the 1700s, 1600s, we had to sort of live by the land and by the seasons and by the stars and by our feelings and our knowings. But now I think we've become a bit brain dead, because we've got too much technology around us. But I think what part of the awakening that's happened is, because we had COVID, we had to stop. We had to think. We weren't going to work every day. We might have been working from home, but we weren't out and about. We were in a lot of isolation, and I think that's what's been part of bringing this awakening back of thinking about, how do I improve my life? How do I have a better look at things? And, is there anything I want to change? But I also do feel, yes, I don't personally play with tarot cards. It's not my thing. People that do it, and that's fine. And if they do readings with them, that I don't have a problem with that. That's their thing, but it's just not my thing. And I think it's more a matter of everything I want to do, everything that I want to work with, it's got to be on a positive light. And the reason I feel I have this is to help, to help others, but it's about the enlightening people and education. I'm not here to throw down everybody's throat that, that you all should do certain rituals, or you should do this or do that to be a better person. I think it's living in your own skin and what feels right for you. But I think it's living mindfully and purposefully, and also creating memories. I think that's one of the things that we realize, that creating positive, happy, uplifting memories, because we don't know how long we're here for. And the thing we take with us into our next life is our memories and the happiness we brought to others and the happiness that they can give us. So when we die, we hope we've left something, an imprint of something nice and positive in the past, but hopefully we'll take it with us in the future. And I think that's, even writing things down, we don't handwrite anymore. I think sometimes it's beautiful, to look at that card that your Nana gave you when, in her handwriting, because that's her essence or her energy. Or, someone might have made a crochet blanket in granny squares, but that person's energy is part of that. Or someone did a painting or a drawing, or even writing something. Yes, an email's nice, but it's really nice when it's on a piece of paper and you can hold it. But a photograph's the most important thing, because that's to capture a moment in time, and it shows we existed. Because it's when we die, it is ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We go, our soul lives on, but sometimes it's nice to get in that photo with that loved one, or have them in, there with you. I'm a mad photographer. I don't like being in photos.
Yeah, neither do I.
I know, I'm terrible. And the kids go, "Why don't you get in a photo, Mum?" And then when my father-in-law died, it really made me think, because he was the photographer. So he was taking the photos, but trying to have a slideshow of all of the glimpses of his life were really hard, because there wasn't photos. And because of the time he was born, there wasn't a lot of photos around when he was a child. But now we're probably overrun with selfies. So it's nice to get those photos, but maybe get a bit more background, not just your face up close, and sort of, or have other faces there with you. And, when you take that photo, remember it, remember that feeling. The other side is music's the other thing. So a lot of the time music will take us back in time, or, when we're thinking of a loved one, that their favorite song might come onto the radio, and you hear it and it reminds you of them. Or, there's music that reminds you when you were 16 or 17 and you're having a great time at the beach with your friends. But, it's amazing how all of that energy, it's all part of our emotions.
There's a lot of social media, the war that's going on over in Europe with the Ukraine war. There's a lot of the potential threat from China. There's a lot of negativity and a lot of negative energy out there in the world at the moment. With the spiritual awakening that is happening, what do you think the biggest message and the most positive thing that individuals can do to help shift the energy to a more positive, light-filled vibration?
I think it's about being more mindful and being respectful of each other, and it's about every life counts. And it doesn't matter what country you are in the world. Some people are lucky to be born in a more fortunate country, and I think it's the thing. It's, a life is a life. And I think it's about respecting each other. And I think we've come to a point where control is such a big thing. People want to control each other, and it's terrible, because we've more or less just gone through a World War III, in a pandemic side of things. We don't want to go through World War III with the actual weapons, I suppose, was COVID a weapon? Who knows? But you know what I mean? It was more another.
I don't know, maybe thing. You do, Debbie.
Yes, I won't go into that, but yes, I do have my own opinion of things. But yeah, I think it's very important to sort of think, if we all could, it would be wonderful if everyone that was interested in the world, we all had even one day or 1 week that we all sent positive energy out to the universe. I think it would make a significant shift, and thinking something positive, because, imagine that combined energy and trying to think of things being more peaceful.
Yeah. When I used to be in a meditation group, and we always used to ground and try and send positive healing energy to the earth and stuff. And for those that aren't into that, probably sounds a bit hippie and ridiculous, but that's fine. That's each to their own. But our teacher was very big in regards to sending healing energy to the earth. Do you still feel that that is a constant need?
Oh, definitely. And especially with what we're doing to her at the moment. We don't treat her very nicely anymore, do we? And you can only dig so many holes. I mean, you can't keep just digging and mining and not really respecting this beautiful place that we live in. And even just seeing this morning of what's gone on in Hawaii, the bushfires, and you saw Greece a few weeks ago, and how many times have we been hit here in Australia and America, and I think sometimes it's nature's, sort of saying, I'm not very happy with you guys, you need to look after me better. And not even just we as humans, what about all the animals, all the plants, animals, and birds? We really, or just creatures, we need to look after and respect everybody.
Given that you've got the ability to tap into this other realm or this other energy that compared to most people that aren't on that energy frequency, how do you, given the insights that you have to the world, to the energy, to this other, I don't know how to describe it, how do you stay positive and not get, I mean, I know that you're saying grounding and shielding and all that sort of stuff, but how do you not get angry with everything that you see and the knowledge that you have? How do you not get angry about it?
Oh, I'm human, so sometimes I do get angry, but
Okay.
that anger's not going to fix anything. Anger just creates more anger. So I think it's a matter of trying to be focused on what you can do, not what you can't, because it's I can't go and stop the war in the Ukraine, or I can't stop the bushfires, or I can't stop people being negative. But I think if you try and do it in your own environment and try and be positive with other people, it's almost like pay it forward, and you hope that your positive energy or your happiness will sort of spread to other people. I think and we are human. We do have days where we get angry, and if someone cuts you off in the car, you might get annoyed, or we're just human beings. But I think treat people how you'd like to be treated is probably the better way to think of it, because then if you're treating someone nicely, well, then you hopefully that they will do the same, because two wrongs don't necessarily make a right. It's only just going to make a fire, isn't it?
Well, that's true. But as I'm shaking that fist in the car at the person that's cut me off, I'm not thinking about that at the moment. At the exact moment.
I have my moments too. Don't you worry. And I just think, well, maybe you're in a bigger hurry than I am, and
Well, it sounds like you got a lot more grace than I do in that situation.
No, I had somebody once, and he was being so rude in the car, and he kept honking me to go around the corner, but I couldn't, because there was a car in front of me, and I had to wait, and because there's a lot of traffic. Anyway, in the end, he went around me. He overtook me, went around me, put his foot down, and he was a tradie. And when he did, the whole back of his ute flew open, and all his tools fell all over the road, and all his nails, and they were everywhere. And I thought, exactly, I thought, well, karma. So there you are. That's you got your own back, didn't you? And I just drove off. I didn't wave, but
do you find that you avoid going out into, like you mentioned the football the other day, do you avoid going to big crowds and supermarkets and stuff like that where there's going to be more people around? Because if you can see dead people walking around like Sixth Sense, I would imagine if there's 10 people, there's probably really 50 for you.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I don't particularly like being in crowds, but I kind of just think I'll just get in and get out.
Yeah.
But then I'll never forget, many years ago, went to Medicare, and it was when I used to work from home then, and then I've had the office for over 20 years. I'm back at home now. And I was in the line, and this lady was in front of me, and her husband was there, and he kept on banging me on the arm. He was in spirit and saying, tell her I'm here, tell her I'm here. And I'm like, leave me alone, to stop it. I just want to be normal. I just want to get out. And we're in the line for about 20 minutes, and he started banging me on the arm. So, oh, please, just stop. And then in the end, I said to her, I hope it doesn't take too long. I've got to get back to work, because I thought if I said that, she'd go, oh, what do you do? So she did. She said, what do you do? And I said, actually, I have an unusual job. I'm a psychic medium. And I said, is your husband in spirit? Oh, yes, he is. And I said, she said, how do you know that? And he kept telling me, he's hitting me on the arm, like by punching me by now, going, tell her it's Jack, tell her it's Jack, tell her it's Jack. And she said, oh, yes, it's my husband, Jack. And I went, oh, yeah, okay. So then I said to her, now he's just showing me that you're supposed to go to Egypt, but you didn't go, but you ended up, you took him with you though, and you went with your son, and he was in your suitcase. And she said, how did you know that? She said, yes, I did. I took his photo and it was in my suitcase. And I did go with my son. And so anyway, I relayed all of these messages for her. And then she said, can you just wait a little bit, dear, when when you get out, I just want to talk to you a bit more. So I gave her some more messages, and I had to bolt off home because I had to go back to work. But it was funny because I thought, oh, well, she really needed that. And you could just see the difference in her energy to know that Jack was aware and had gone to Egypt with her, even if it was only in a photo, but he was happy that she was still living a life and, surviving after his passing. So it was really good to see that.
Is that a common occurrence that you just randomly be out and have to be like, oh, I've got to tap this person on the shoulder and say I've got a message for them?
It used to be. Now I don't. I just think if it's meant to be, the person will find me, or if a situation arises where that person talks to me of their own accord, and then I feel it's right, I'll let them know. But I don't sort of go unsolicited and sort of tell everybody that there's someone there. Because I did that once.
Long Island medium.
Oh, look, I did it once and it was so embarrassing. My kids were only little and we went to the circus, and there was this old man, and I could see his wife was passed and she was beside him. And she kept telling me I needed to tell him she was there. And then we go into the circus and we're sitting there and he sits beside us. And I thought, this is a sign. He's sitting there right beside us. So then at the interval, I went out, and when we did, I went up to him and I said, I just wanted to let you know your wife's here. She wants me to let you know. And he started screaming at me and telling me I was a nutbag and a crazy person. And I said to the kids, I think we don't need to see the rest of the circus now. I think we better go home, because they're saying, why's the man yelling at you, mummy? Because they're only little. And I said, oh, don't worry. Anyway, they made me go back in. So we went back in and sat in there. But when we did leave, he sat next to us, but just didn't want to look at me. He thought I was crazy. But when we did get out, you could see the difference. He was all stooped over when we first got there and really sad. And he was standing up straight, and there was just a difference in him. So whether what I said, if he thought I was crazy or not, I could see that it had got through to him, because you could see he'd sort of changed, in his appearance. But I haven't done it since.
Debbie, thank you so much. I'm very conscious of your not taking up any more of your time. Everybody can contact Debbie if they want a psychic reading. Her website details and how to contact her are going to be in the show notes of the episode. Cheers, Debbie. The One Moment Please podcast.
Yeah.